But one thing that the Liberals are good at is just like waste of money, fraud, abuse of that, all the taxpayer. So here's an audit. A federal agency responsible for $60 million in a ArriveCan program has yet to fill the gaps. Why bother, right? To fill gaps in fraud detection, warned the auditors. An in-house report faulted Canada Border Service agents for being slow to tighten controls after the ArriveCan irregularities. And they say the gaps are there and had not been met for over a year, while a new integrity framework was not fully yet in place, despite increasing concerns around the integrity of the agency procurement in 2023. Why bother? Fraud risk said the agency in a typical year processes 70 million travelers and 135 million commercial shipments and collects $39 billion in tariffs. Given the extensive scale of the agency operations, fraud, either alleged or proven, can undermine its ability to meet its mandate and deliver services to Canadians. But why even bother trying to make this a priority?
I mean, it speaks to a broader kind of lax approach to the border, the Canadian border, really. It doesn't seem to be, in a way, in so many ways, Canada is still living in the old world. You know, we hear Melanie Joly, as she discovered a couple of weeks ago, that the world is changing. It often feels like Canada's still in that old world, you know, the kind of 1990s or early 2000s world. And you can't be stuck there. You can't be stuck in the past, especially when it comes to things like your border. You've just got to get real.
If you're watching, feel free to comment. We interact with the comments. We're on every morning at 9 a.m. We are definitely not the mouthpiece like CBC and CTV for the Liberal Party of Canada. Just the opposite, I guess. And if you could help us share it. They took away our audience with of 200,000 with Bill C-18, and that still continues. Like, it just blows my mind on that as well. But here's this, though. The average employee in the federal government makes some decent coin, 136,000 a year. Here's a little chart for you, right? There's 441,000 people, and this has grown, right? Like, the size of this workforce continues to grow, and they do okay. And then if you look at some of the recent hires there, the new agencies that Mark Carney filled with some of his buddies, they seem to be doing A-okay as well, over $500,000 each just in salary, and then there's bonuses, and then there's travel and cars and everything.
It's kind of, it never stops amazing me, really, that in this country, not the only country, but I mean, it seems to be particularly bad that in this country, public service workers get better conditions than people in the private sector. That's just completely the wrong way around, isn't it? It's
and you
baffling.
wonder why the federal employees are basically a lock when they did that Pierre's riding, when they redistricted, whatever they call it. They why federal employees vote for the Liberals, because one talks about cutting and the other one talks about filling the pockets, right? There you go.
Well, it's almost like a lobby, isn't it? Now the civil service or civil servants together, they're almost like a lobby, or like a kind of a group that you have to appease, and they're part of the Liberal coalition, whether they wanted that to happen or not. That's kind of become a truism now, hasn't it?
So this one here, this is another one from Holly Owens. The Blacklocks, political aides would not comment after Prime Minister Mark Carney told a podcaster he'd have police arrest Benjamin Netanyahu if he visited Canada. The Department of Foreign Affairs has recently, on October 8th, expressed no interest in the question and called it a matter for the courts. But Mark Carney, when asked, he just said yes. It was just his basic answer. He didn't try to pussyfoot around it. So he really wanted to. That was the one he made clear. That was, I'd say, one answer that I can remember that he actually made clear.
Amazing, wasn't it? Yeah, imagine if we could get that kind of clarity from him on something like the Online News Act.
Or
BC
the pipeline.
Ferries or something
or the pipeline.
Like that.
Will you build a pipeline?
Yeah. Or the economy in general, yeah. It was amazing to see that, and the way that he answered that so quickly and clearly and sort of candidly makes me think that he'd already rehearsed that.
Even Trudeau pussyfooted around. He never threatened arrest. His only public comment in November 22nd, he said that he would respect international law. But it's the odd part, and we talked about this on Friday. The odd part in this whole thing is he's the one that picked up the phone and begged Trump if he could come to Egypt, be part of this peace deal. Like he wants to be part of that room. And that peace deal is between Gaza or the Palestinians and the Israelis. So, like how, like obviously he wasn't going to Israel, right? Because I don't think Netanyahu would, I don't know if they asked him if he'd get arrested there, but just wild.
You would assume, and it certainly seems to be the case, that Israel-Canada relations are just like in the gutter, aren't they, right now? And presumably the Liberal Party sort of higher ups that have decided on this path, they've made the calculation that it's we're getting more than we're losing in this situation. But I wouldn't be so sure. I'm not sure, because Israel is not just a random tiny country. Like, it is a very important country in so many ways. So to completely alienate the Israelis, I don't know. Is that really to our benefit, Mr. Carney?
Well, he seemed to be adamant about it. And at the same time, that's, like even this relationship with Trump, like it seems one moment there, he's just basically, you couldn't find best buds. And then he does things that are definitely, that go against what Trump would find acceptable. So it's really kind of like puzzling for sure. And then here's, this is from one of the MPs. A Conservative motion tomorrow would force the Liberal government to release details of the deal made with Stellantis. The Liberals have handed billions to Stellantis. Now Stellantis is handing over 3,000 jobs to Trump's America. And so they want those documents. And what are the chances we get to see those documents?
Might get to see them in the 2040s if you're lucky.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be surprising. I think I had anyway, it's crazy. And the CBC is like finally recognizing they have no audience left, yet they do get $1.55 billion. And now they've got a 5-year plan to win back non-users and dissatisfied users. But Peter Menzies, who we've actually gotten, you did the interview with Peter Menzies, didn't you? He's a media, or maybe you didn't.
No, I don't think so.
But he's against Bill C-18 as well, the former vice chair of CRTC. It's very difficult for anybody in Toronto to be making sound decisions. What are the interests of viewers, readers, and listeners in Western Canada, rural parts of Ontario? I mean, do you think CBC could win people back when they're clearly biased? Like, I mean, if you look at the chief misinformation officer, their number one anchor there, Rosie Barton, how many times has she made, you could say knowingly or unknowingly, like, like the trucker rally with the Russian funding, and then blamed it on Trump. She just came up with excuse after excuse of why this couldn't be Canadians doing it. They never once explored that. Even this serious allegation that Pierre Poilievre has made, it's a serious allegation that, calling for the arrest of a former prime minister. And instead of going and saying, okay, maybe there's something there, we should look at that too. I mean, at the same time, you could go and discredit what he said, but on the other side of that, shouldn't you look into it? You would think, no?
That would, yeah, you would think that. But it's, as for the question, a lot of people in this article as well, a lot of people are asking that question, like, is it realistic? Like, can CBC actually win people back? Because it's not just dissatisfied users and like people in Western Canada, it's also young people. Immigrants is another one, which for some reason they call newcomers, but immigrants, so they're not bothered about CBC. It doesn't offer them anything.
They're not the voice of Canada.
The infection has spread to all parts of the body, hasn't it, with CBC? And I don't really know if it's not just a case of giving them, it's not just a course of antibiotics. I think they need dramatic.
That young man they hired,
surgery.
Travis, which was, he says that he was a DEI hire, Travis there. And then he wanted to interview Pierre Poilievre, and they wouldn't let him, and they basically fired him, but they say he's not fired. What a mess they made with that one as well. I mean, it's clear to see where the CBC is going. Just watch it for 5 minutes, and then just how far they have fallen. How far
it's funny
they
that
have
you
fallen.
mentioned that diversity hire, or whatever term you used there, because this plan includes that. It includes targets like ethnicity
That's all they
targets
know. That's all
for the
they know.
workforce.
Yeah, that's all they know.
Well, because they're so, I mean, I think they get it wrong in such a profound way. Just everything, not just
Their
news, but
arrogance,
everything, the whole of
is just.
society. They get it so wrong that they think, all right, there's a lot of people who aren't white in Canada now, right? So what should we do how do we appeal to them? It's like, all right, let's get people who aren't white and put them in front of the camera. That'll work. It's like people are a little bit more complicated than that, you know. They're not going to tune into your channel just because there's somebody on there with like a slightly darker skin tone. That's not how human beings work. But I mean, it's that paternalistic approach, isn't it? And I think there is something to that, complaining about Toronto and sort of Eastern Canada, because there are a lot of very out of touch people there.
If you look at some of the things, they could make a list. The GEM, they won't release the data for the GEM subscribers. They say it's during the leadership debate, they're the ones that said they felt their lives were threatened, so because Rebel beat them to the microphone, and then they said their lives were endangered, and so they had to somehow block. They called independent journalists like us. They lumped all of in there independent. They said we're not even journalists, right? Because they said that obviously unless you're like the CBC worthy, then like what business do you have asking questions of candidates? They are, absolutely. And how many stories did they do on Bill C-18? No, they just stick their face in the trough. They got, during an election, I mean, this should be questioned as well. During the election, Mark Carney promised them a $150 million raise. During the election cycle, that Pierre Poilievre said he's going to defund them. One says, I'm going to defund you. The other says, I'm going to fill your trough. They win. The first thing that the CBC executive did was give the executive team a raise. Not reporters. They gave the executive team a raise, almost like a reward for helping Mark Carney and the Liberals win the election.
Yep. So somebody asked here, Joel, or Joe, can't tell what his name is there. Anyway, he asks, I've heard that if you spend 1,095 days in Canada, then you become a citizen of Canada. That's how would CBC diagnose that? They would say partially true. It is fundamentally true. If you're a permanent resident and you spend 1,095 days in Canada as a permanent resident, you become entitled to citizenship. Yeah, and I can tell you that because I did that myself not so long ago.
So young people are struggling to find entry-level jobs. It's going to get worse. The evolution of artificial intelligence has made finding a job a lot more difficult for young, especially the entry-level jobs. Well, experienced workers are having seen their employment level stay steady or even grow. People aged 15 to 24 are suffering from the highest unemployment in Canada in 15 years. It's not instead they're trying to just blame it all on AI. It also has to do with record immigration. But AI definitely not helping in that regard.